welcome to this week's Thrill of Driving podcast, and we have a very special guest, Rahil Ansari, boss of Audi India. Rahil, thank you for being on the podcast.
Thank you for inviting me.
You've been here for 3 years, almost 3 years in India. What's been the journey like?
Journey was challenging, dynamic, but I think I really loved it. Pretty good experience. I think you cannot work in such a dynamic and challenging market like India. It's probably the most dynamic in the world, especially when it comes to policies. So you see that nowhere actually.
I remember the first time we spoke, it was during the A5, S5 drives in Rajasthan. And that was the time when it actually hit me that I'm getting old. It was the first time I did an interview with a senior head honcho at a car company. And I was the older person in the room. So what is it like being the boss of Audi India when you're not yet 40, you're just touching 40 and you're the head of Audi India? Is that too much responsibility? Do you get overwhelmed, or it's like, obviously it's a fantastic opportunity, but how do you deal with that?
I think it's, you have a lot of respect for that position, of course, but you of course need to also work with that confidence that you have, that you've gained over the years. Yeah, of course, while I'm young, I think I've still gained quite a lot of experience overall in different areas of the automotive sector. I think most importantly is just be a human being. Respect everyone, work hard, and if you fail, and everyone fails, just get up, learn from your failures, and try again, and try to do it much better. And that's basically the key. I think for me, it's important also to encourage the team, whether it's Audi India team or whether it's the Audi team in the dealerships. I think it's important to give them motivation, to be a role model for them, to be, of course, a young leader. Audi is perceived as the youngest brand in India, so that, of course, helped me in getting into this role and living that role actually also. Maybe the time, maybe like in terms of digitalization, being active on social media like Instagram, but at the same time also understanding what the psyche of the customer is. Our average customer is 37 years old, actually so younger than me, but that gives you an opportunity also to understand better what actually they are looking for. Of course, we also have people that are older, but typically also those ones that have a young mindset. So with that entrepreneurial spirit. And yes, it's a great responsibility. I have a lot of respect for that position. I love that job. I love that role. I love being part of Audi in India and Audi overall, because it's just a brand that fascinates you.
How at this young age, how does one become the head of Audi India? Do you have like genius level IQ? Were you an overachiever in school, in college? How did you land this role?
Not really. I think it's like probably, like I said earlier, you have to work hard. I had, fortunately, also bosses that believed in me. In every different stint, I had different bosses that gave me an opportunity to prove myself, challenge myself, challenge me, and at the same time also give me that responsibility and empowerment to prove that I'm worthwhile taking a shot for different roles. And I think that's basically it. I think, of course, you have to be sometimes at the right time, at the right place. And like in this role, they were looking for someone who has an experience across various sales channels, whether it's after sales, whether it's dealer development or sales. And I had that, fortunately, and of course I had also worked in India. So I was the lucky one, the chosen lucky one. I was pretty happy about that, of course. But you don't have to be genius. I think it's more about really working hard and being humble.
You've always been an Audi guy, right? Straight out of college was your first job with Audi?
No, actually not. So I've been working during my studies. I've done a couple of internships, a couple of projects with FMCG, with Procter & Gamble, for example. I've been in the fashion industry with Hugo Boss. Done a couple of stints. The first job was with a Dutch health food manufacturer, but I quickly realized that I have to follow my passion, which was always cars. And then basically I joined Audi in 2004. So that was.
So where did you start at Audi?
So I started in the sales controlling as a pricing consultant, basically looking at positioning of Audi in different markets. Started with smaller markets, ended up with bigger markets, such as Italy. and so basically how you price those cars and how you basically maximize profit on each car for Audi globally.
It's now 3 years in India. What's been your biggest learning from India?
The biggest learning is that policies are unpredictable. Jokes aside, I think like the biggest learning is that India has the potential to grow big, but at the same time we sometimes don't do enough, and we, as said, all the stakeholders, that includes the government, that includes also the OEM, we don't do enough for this to make it happen. We need to allow this growth to happen. I think in India we've been a bit too prohibitive, especially in terms of regulations, to let the market grow. That of course applies to the luxury segment in particular, who I'm referring to, because it's been always one of my major criticisms that luxuries or luxury taxes are basically too high, that a car in the luxury segment needs to be made more accessible. And it's not because we want to sell more cars. Of course, everyone wants to sell more cars. I understand that. But it's at the same time also one of those things that is aspirational. If you see that cultural mindset and that shift that has happened in India with us, it was earlier it was very traditionally, stereotypically, it was I buy jewelries, I buy a house, got a banana, and so on. And then I buy a car, I purchase a car. And now you basically finance a car, luxury products, even if it's like the entry segment, an A3 or Q3, you have a lot of employees that are basically financing those cars with an EMI. And it is accepted by the society, if you finance a car.
Practice,
Exactly. And even going one step further, you see now in this trend in the industry, which is going down for new car sales, used cars are picking up heavily. Like a few years back, used cars were not in the society was not like really well seen, culturally not as accepted to have a used vehicle of a luxury segment. Now it's very common, and of course it should be common because these cars are thoroughly checked. These cars have partially also extended warranty, and all of this. They bring a lot of benefits, and of course they bring you a much quicker and lower access to luxury.
They're extremely affordable.
Absolutely.
And with these cars, you do 10,000, 20,000 kilometers, nothing really goes wrong. So it's like
absolutely.
You don't have any headaches.
Correct.
So does Audi focus a lot on used cars now?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So that's, as I said, now the trend is for new cars, it's challenging. Used cars we see doubling this year. We've been focusing quite heavily for the past 2.5 years on this, to be honest, because now Audi has a decent car park in India. We have more than 60,000 cars in India, which also means that you see a lot of Audis on the road, but of course also pre-owned cars that you can afford at an attractive price. We check them thoroughly. Our dealer partners are investing now more and more into the facilities and having more used cars available, pre-owned cars available. That program is called Approved Plus, and we've seen that now for the opening of Audi Goto. So we've just recently launched the new dealership. It has a space of 21 cars, 7 are new cars, and 14 are actually Approved Plus.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah. And which cars would really move well in the used car market?
You see actually all the segments typically moving, whether it's an A3 or Q3, but especially of course you see an A6 also moving well, but of course also the Q range, because that's been stereotypically also now the trend of the industry. You see a lot of Qs. We had earlier an SUV share of about 30% about 3-4 years back. Now it's almost 50-50, and it will grow. I think the customer preference is also clear towards the Qs, towards our SUVs, but at the same time we'll keep on surprising our customers with new sedans, for example the A6 that is coming up also this year.
So what about sports cars? Now Audi was, I think, at the front runner with the R8. It was the first mid-engined car, not mass, you can't call it mass, but not a grey import, not through some shady guy. You could get it through a dealership, with proper backup, with everything, and an Audi with the quality and everything that you associate with it. You were at the forefront. Are you still pushing to get back there where you were?
So we'll not push the Audi sports cars to that extent, I would say. Of course, we have the RS5, for example. We still have the S5, and Yeah, we will have sports cars available also in the future. Our trend and our push will definitely be more towards electrification, I have to say. I think that's the future for us. We've seen that in some of the previews now with the Audi e-tron. That's going pretty well. Customers are pretty excited about it. You have already a lot of people that want to pay the check, give you the booking already. So that will create a hype. Yeah, but it's not about creating a hype, of course. Of course, we want to be one of the first ones to bring those cars, a fully electric vehicle.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we do believe that this is also the trend for us in terms of reducing emissions. It's, of course, part of responsibility, social responsibility. But at the same time, also a bit preempting the trend that is going to happen. So we've seen the shift towards from diesel to petrol in the past years. We will be pushing petrol, of course, as well. And electric is then the next step because we do believe that electric will be the future in India with the development that's happening, and of course plug-in hybrids, because we understand, of course, that customers will not shift from one day to the other from an ICE, from a petrol engine directly to an electric vehicle. I understand that. At the same time, there shouldn't be any range anxiety because an e-tron has in the entry version 300 kilometers and in the upper version 400 kilometers of range. But at the same time, that cultural mindset change and shift, that will take some time. I think that's still a few years to come. But we want to be one of the first ones to drive that.
So how has the response been to the e-tron? And do you support government policies, at least in terms of EVs and what they're doing?
I think the government is doing a fantastic job in terms of EV policies. Let's put that clear. And that they have been very proactive and shown quite some dedication already 2 years ago. I think when the GST was implemented in 2017, to already announce at that point in time EV with 12% GST was a good step and already an indication of where the industry is going to go. Now with the recent announcement of reducing the GST to 5% for EVs, I think it's a pretty good step. Of course, the infrastructure has to be pushed forward. That roadmap has to be transferred into execution. I think that's going to happen. It's a question of time, but at the same time, of course, the acceptance from the customer has to be there. I think that's overall good. From our perspective, we've done our homework. We'll have our dealerships ready in terms of charging station infrastructure, fast charging at the dealerships, but of course we'll also support our customers in terms of home installation. Now, when it comes to Audi, I think the response was phenomenal.
Really?
It was good. We had a couple of cities where we did a preview just to test the waters a little bit. How is the acceptance going to be? And it's a combination of like two elements. It's one thing, of course, people love SUVs, and they love, of course, the shape of Audi, and the e-tron looks like pretty dynamic, of course, with the lights. Also the lean and clean shape of the virtual mirrors, where you use the cameras. That's one aspect of it, but at the same time, it's also creating a trend, or basically also being one of the first ones to do this. I'm driving an EV in India. It's a statement. I think it's also a good statement to make, saying, hey, I'm looking at lowering emissions. I'm one of those guys that is driving an EV in India, and I think a lot of those customers will definitely also be there in that range who want to club actually both the elements.
And also in this segment, it's actually easier to make the shift because these customers have a fixed parking lot. They can put up a charger at their home. They can put up a charger at their office. So for them, where you're going to charge is not going to be such a big issue. You don't have to go to a public charging point. So you're not really dependent on infrastructure. You can create your own infra for yourself. So I think in that sense, it is easier, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You nailed it. I think it's exactly like this in this area. Even if you want to go out, let's take an example. I drive from Delhi to Chandigarh. I will charge my car then maybe in Karnal, or I'll go to from Mumbai to Pune, and I will charge my car in Pune. That is also possible, but mostly, of course, the commute happens within the city. And it's exactly like you said, that they will charge their cars in the office or at home, or then at the dealership. So there are multiple opportunities to really do this. Plus, of course, you have an added advantage of wide range.
Yeah, but the challenge obviously remains pricing. GST will obviously help you with pricing, but is it going to be frightfully expensive or just expensive?
No, it's not going to be frightfully expensive. The pricing is not finalized, but I think realistically you will be in the range of a CR, maybe a little more. That's probably the pricing that you can look at. Which
will be expected, right?
Which, yeah, exactly. Which for such a car is pretty okay. I think, of course, it's not cheap. Let's face it. But the technology is also not cheap, and because we've just started basically from an Audi perspective globally with an electric car, and of course once you scale that up after a few years, you will also have models that will be in the lower end, and we'll of course bring from an Audi perspective also cars that will be more affordable. Still luxury cars. Audi globally is launching about 30 EVs until 2025, out of which 12 will be fully electric vehicles, and the rest will be plug-in hybrids. So some or the other car will definitely also find its way to India.
Yeah. Coming back to my question on sports cars, so that means Audi India is not going to focus on sports cars?
We will definitely have sports cars available. I think if you are perceived as a young and dynamic brand, you also have to live this. That dynamism or that progressiveness will show not only with the e-tron. We'll also have some sports cars in the pipeline. I would say you will be surprised to see one or the other car that finds its way to India, and maybe there's even an electric sports car there.
One or another car or another SUV, a sport SUV, is that?
No, I'm talking about sports cars.
Yeah, but a sport SUV? Because I always believe that India is, like you said, India is SUV country with the roads, now the monsoons, Mumbai roads, terrible shape. You can use an Urus much more than you can use a Huracan, for instance, right? So will we see like an SQ from Audi?
I wouldn't say no to this. I wouldn't confirm it at this stage. Of course, there are a couple of discussions going on, but nothing has been finalized, to be honest.
Yeah. You're talking about young and dynamic. Let's go back to you. How does the boss of Audi India spend his downtime? Do you get much downtime?
Not much, to be honest, but I spend the downtime, of course, with the family. It's first of all the key. But the rest of it, of course, I do sports whenever I can. I love any kind of ball sports, primarily football. I'm a big supporter of Bayern Munich. So, of course, apart from watching the games, I love to play football, badminton, tennis, squash. So those things I really like. I enjoy doing this. That's primarily my downtime. Or sometimes, actually, the downtime is even on the flight. When I'm on business travel, I've downloaded a couple of Netflix series, and I just listen to them.
What are you watching right now?
So it's a Spanish series. I don't know it's called House of Money.
Okay.
I think it's called like this, but it's pretty interesting. It's like the third season. So it's basically about a couple of guys that are robbing a bank. And it's pretty interesting. It's nice. So this I like to watch. Of course, I've been following Homeland and Designated Survivor and all of those episodes. So it's more into thrillers in this area. I like to watch.
Do you listen to a lot of music in the car?
I do. I do listen to a lot of Bollywood movies.
Yeah,
it's all Bollywood up and down.
Yeah, really?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I love Hindi songs.
So you have that Desi blood in you.
Absolutely, yeah. Since my childhood, I was born and raised in Germany, but at the same time, I've grown up with Amitabh Bachchan, Dawn movies, or like Sholay, or like all of those movies I've watched basically at home. And picked up those dialogues, played it with my brother, and then so it was It's I think I have that blood in me, and whenever I listen to Hindi music, it feels good. It feels like home.
I believe the Volkswagen group here in Mumbai, you all had an inter-brand competition, and you captained the winning football team.
Yeah. I did. So we won that in the final against Goto. I was the goalkeeper, and after penalties we won.
So you were the MVP.
So not the MVP. I think it was a good team effort, and that's basically what Audi India stands for. It's about the team winning. You win as a team or you lose as a team. It's not about the individual. I think that's the key. Of course, I was happy to be part of that team. I was happy to score and also to save some penalties. But by the end of the day, we won together as a team.
You also have a cool sartorial sense. Until you came in, every car industry exec in your position was always in a suit and a tie. sneakers and no, looking very different up at your launches, projecting that cool image. Did your internship at Hugo Boss help you, or like for me, my wife buys all my clothes. How does it work for you?
So I've always liked somehow fashion, and of course I worked then with the Hugo Boss. I had also wrote my master thesis with them. But I've always had like I don't know, like I always liked fashion and created my own style. I think of course it depends on where you work and which area you work. You cannot always like be so progressive. Of course, this job gave me an opportunity also to live the brand the way I would want to live it, because I think it's young, it's dynamic, it's progressive. And you should be just yourself. And I think it's, yes, while people say clothes define you, define your personality, I think to a certain extent it's right, because it's what I am, and we've changed that attire also across the dealerships. At the same time, it's about yourself. It's about how you behave and how you are with people, and whether you wear a suit or whether you wear jeans, whether you wear shorts, you can be still progressive and still be a nice guy to have a chat with.
Do you have like go-to brands?
I do have go-to brands. I like branded and non-branded stuff. I think it's more about like how it looks like. Of course, I have my favorite sneaker brands.
Which are?
I like Louis Vuitton and I like Gucci, to be honest. But at the same time, I also have like really nice pairs of Nike or Adidas in my wardrobe. So it's a mixture of everything. And you have like some brands with some particular, whatever particular it is. I have some particular shirts that I always wear. I have some particular jeans that I always prefer. I think human beings are sometimes very habitual. And sometimes I realize that in myself also when it comes to clothes. Except for sneakers. Sneakers is different. But then I change. And that's a little bit, I think, also supported by my wife. She doesn't give me advice on what to buy, but she tells me, change something. You're such a dynamic personality. Always inspire people. You also have to keep on changing those things. While I change the way I work, or while I do new things at work and try to also push my team to do new things or do things differently, try something new, even if you fail. Of course, this also happens then with clothing, so I do that as well. And it's good. I think it's good. It's just interesting, and you just have to feel comfortable in the way you are.
So in the Audi India office now, there's no ties?
There are some ties. Of course, some of the people are wearing ties. But most of the people are no longer wearing ties. And even across the dealerships, you see that less and less. And I think it's good. It's basically, see, if you want to wear a tie, that's totally fine. I also love wearing a tie once in a while, but I don't have to do it now every day.
You said something very pertinent. It's okay to fail. Your innings in India. Is there anything that you look back and you think that, okay, maybe I should have done it differently?
I think you always ask yourself this throughout your whole journey, career journey, whichever stint that is. And of course, in India, I've asked myself the same thing multiple times. Could you have done this better? Could you have done this differently? And so on and so forth. And I think it's good if you do this, because it shows that you are reflective, that you think about what can you learn from your basically past. But at the same time, it's also important that you basically not only reflect this, you learn from it, and you identify exactly what were the things that you could have done differently, and that you learn from them. I think my learning is also a couple of things during the stint in India. It's like I've been very patient with a couple of developments. But sometimes you just need to also have an early escalation or a quick stop to things. If things are just circulating around and there's no solution, you just need to also sometimes it's, and that's the expression, it's better to chop off the finger than to have to chop off your entire arm at the end of the day. So those things are probably the learning. But it's not in a negative sense. I think it's positive that you learn those things while on the one hand, I learned to be more patient here. On the other hand, I think it's also you sometimes need to make calls also quicker than you would have wanted to do it.
Yeah. I remember at your first launch, your press conference, you said something on the lines of Audi Bude Logon ke liye nahi hai. What was the exact line that you used?
I said Audi Bude Logon ki gaadi nahi hai.
Yeah, Bude Logon ki gaadi nahi hai. Audi is not for old people. But did you underestimate the market when you came? Because,
No.
Yeah?
No, I didn't. I think India has been always a market that is dynamic, was dynamic, is dynamic, and will be always dynamic. And but that statement is only half complete. Yeah. But what I basically said is like we are looking for people who, independent of whether they're old or young, that have a young mindset, that have that entrepreneurial spirit. So they can be in their 60s or 70s and drive an Audi, but they're like, hey, I know.
Young in the head.
Yeah. See, I look at my mom. She's like, now what? She's turning 69. She turned 69 this year, and she's on basically Facebook and Instagram. She's very active. I find that very impressive at this age that you are still willing to learn so much about social media, iPad, doing your Facebook chats and everything, and at this age that you are still going with how the trend is. And that's basically all I meant by saying this to that phrase. I've not underestimated the market. I think India will remain always a challenging market because it's one of the largest car markets in the world. And it's very, of course, A0 driven. So yeah, it's
all small
cars, of course, play the crucial factor over here. The luxury market has been always very small. And I think that's a bit of a sad thing also, that the market, that cake of the luxury segment has not grown to that extent.
It's been
like it
all
should
you
have been.
4 players, 5 players have been just taking volume away from each other, losing volume to each other. That has never grown, right?
And that's actually the sad part, while basically also we have a jump in middle class and we have a jump also in the upper class. We should have also seen a growth in that market, which is it's not ideal, because we as car manufacturers, as luxury car manufacturers, expected of course more from the market. But I wouldn't say underestimate. I think of course you would have wanted to see more. On the other hand, sales is one parameter. It's for me always one out of many parameters. And if you look at the other parameters, I'm pretty happy about seeing that development, whether it's dealer profitability, because that's the key. By the end of the day, if your dealer partners are not sustainable, you can do whatever you want to do, but you will not sell any cars in India. And that's of course, and by the end of the day, you have to make money with businesses. It's not a charity. Those things we are of course looking at: efficiency in the workshops, in the showrooms, that basically cars come out quicker and customers get their service much quicker done. Those things we have looked at and drastically improved. So I think there are a lot of those measures that have been also customer centric, that have driven the business. We have been the first ones now to in the luxury segment to launch augmented reality. You can take your iPad, the sales consultant takes the iPad home to the customer. You can configure your A8. You see the A8 in your living room in life size or small. You can park it in your parking lot already virtually and see how it looks like. So there are a lot of things that we've done. Of course, I would have always wanted to do more. That's probably also a little bit the perfectionism in me. To always want to do more. If the day had 48 hours, that would still not be enough, I guess. But that's good. I think it's good that you have like a lot of ideas and that you want to do more. But at the same time, I have to also say you need to take rests. You need to take time away from work and rest and focus on your private life, on family, on friends, and get out and a little bit forget about the work. It's difficult, I agree. Yeah, but at the same time, you have to do it, because that also helps you to come down, and then it gives you that creativity the next day to do more.
You came in when times were starting to get difficult, and it just got harder and harder. There was no uptick really in terms of the market or growth. Dieselgate came in. No, that was like for everybody. It was a little brain freeze. Then the WLTP issues came up. A lot of the models that we were looking forward to, that we thought that would come, all of them have got delayed. When are they going to start coming in?
It's a good question. I'll give you the answer to this. I think when I started 2017, the market was still okay. Yeah, we had a 2% growth. I think while we had degrown in 2016, we still had a 2% growth in 2017. But then, of course, 2018 was more challenging, and that's actually where it started to get a bit challenging for us. Before, actually, it was okay. Diesel didn't have an impact on us, to be honest, in India. Yeah, of course, we had also diesel stop in the NCR, but that was a temporary stop. That everyone had to face. But to be honest, I think it was more, of course, the emission changes in Europe last year that had an impact in delays of market entries for us. And those market entries are finally coming. They're coming in September. The A6, the new A6 is coming end of September. The new A8 is coming in December. The Q8 is coming in December. And of course, we're hoping to launch the e-tron also at the beginning of next year. And of course, everyone is also waiting for some new Qs.
The new Q3 that we've been waiting for really long.
See, I think Q3, of course, everyone is waiting for this car. That's also coming beginning of next year. So there's a lot more in the pipeline, and we're of course evaluating some more cars below the Q3.
Finally, you are very popular on Instagram. I think you're more popular than we are on Instagram. This morning I put up a story that we're doing a conversation with you. We got actually quite a lot of responses, but we'll just take 3 or 4.
Okay.
Otherwise, it'll get too long. The first one is, when is Audi going to catch up with its German counterparts?
I think we've been always at par. Of course, the last 12 to 18 months have been a challenge. So you will wait, watch, and see Audi striking back.
The new Q3 launch, but you've already said that. How is the future looking for the auto sector in India, and when can we expect a recovery?
I think auto sector is going to have a challenge in the next 12 to 24 months in India. It's not going to be easy. I think there will be there will be degrowth this year. There will be maybe a little bit of a stabilization next year. First quarter will be going up, second quarter will be going down, then it will stabilize. I think the market will recover only in 2021. And then from then onwards. That will take some time, really. Yeah.
So everybody will be under stress till 2021?
I guess so, yeah.
Tough times, huh?
Yeah.
Is the TT discontinued?
Yes, it is discontinued.
Okay. You're planning to launch the e-tron. What are your plans to contribute to charging infrastructure?
So we touched upon this already a little bit. I think for us the key is basically in terms of charging infrastructure that we have that ready at the dealerships and that we support our customers in having that at home. With the range of the e-tron, the rest you don't need to worry about. I think the public charging infrastructure, whenever that comes up, it's good. It's an added advantage for us, but it's not a must.
Any plans for the A1 in India?
A1 is under evaluation, that's correct.
Okay, so it is under evaluation. Yes. So smaller premium luxury cars will be there.
Possibly.
This is a good one. How is Audi as an employer?
Audi is a great employer. I think the best thing about Audi is just 4 rings. I think it's a moment of pride whenever you enter the office. Whenever I look at the 4 rings, I've always been very attached to it. I love the brand, I love the products, and it's a good employer, of course. When I look at now the team in India especially, I think it's a small family. And that's also like the philosophy that we're living. That whenever you buy an Audi, you buy into a family, and the same will live actually here. It's a small family, it's a small unit, and that's something that I'm definitely going to miss.
And somebody from the family is going to step into your shoes.
Yes.
Balbir has been an Audi guy for very long. Short stint with Porsche, but otherwise been an Audi guy for very long. How's he as a person, and what can we look forward to from him?
See, Balbir is a great person. I really like him, not only as a colleague, but of course also as a friend. I think he's doing a good job. He's been doing a great job. It's a great chance now to step in for him. He's been part of the management team now, and I think we've developed a lot of things jointly. So we'll take that to the next level. I'm happy that he sees now a couple of those launches on those products that we have worked upon getting into India. And I'm sure he will do a fantastic job. And the most important thing is he has the acceptance from the team. And he will get along with them well, and he's doing that already now, so it's fine.
So you head back to Audi AG end of this month. When do you start your new role, and what is your new role?
So I'll start directly beginning of next month. So my new role is called Senior Director Central Sales Controlling, which basically means I'm in charge of couple of global topics, global after sales, global marketing, global digital budget, some part of the global sales budget. So quite a good global role. It's a great opportunity for me. While I would have wanted to stay a minimum until the end of the year, you cannot choose whenever you get a great opportunity. And of course, this one was a great one. While personally, it's of course a challenging choice to make. Professionally, it's the right choice for me. So I'm happy about it. But there's of course no holidays. It's directly a smooth entry into the new role.
And last question, what car will you be driving when you go back?
So I'll drive the RS4 Avant. I wanted to have a mixture of basically a car that you can drive out during the weekend, take suitcases in the trunk, and then just drive, but of course driving a little quicker. I love the German highways, so I have to also experience that back again.
Thank you, Rahil.
Thanks
Thank you for being on the podcast, and we wish you all the very best.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you.